but we're going to start the video over here, and you ready? Hi, and welcome to a Regent Ramas recording. Today is my 5th combat class, and we are going to be talking about footwork primarily. I'm going to do a quick go over of some of the little bits that we've had in the last couple of weeks. I've already gone over with these guys our 3 primary shots, but today I'm going to be talking about those 3 primary shots, a couple of combos that we did last week, as well as guards with a shield, but we'll put that in there. So today I want to talk about footwork and the value of footwork and the importance of footwork. Because every single high-level combatant is able to do all the basic stuff, all the basic shots. But they do them in such a way that they optimize their attack position on their opponent. So I'm going to need a volunteer. And I used Kevin last time, but he's a really great volunteer, so I'd be happy to use you again. Come on. I'm just going to get you to stand right here. I'm going to get the class members to just move down over here so that you guys can see at an angle so that we don't interfere with the video. Really simply, when I'm in, if you just do the defense position, if you just do whatever your defense position is. A few weeks ago, I taught the house for a defense position. So I'm going to use that here. So in my defense position, I'm going ahead and do the house. And from this position, from his position, the stuff that I can see is I can see this shoulder, I can see this shoulder, I can see a straight shot to the chest. I can see what I did here is a combo. So combo to the outside of the arm and the chest using his position just like that. But now what I want to do is I'm going to actually optimize my shot by simply taking a step. When I'm standing, and it's important for you guys to see how you're standing, I'm standing with my attack foot forward. Right now, my position is attack foot forward. I'm basically at the longest reach that I can without having to move my feet. And if I want to get a longer reach on my opponent, I'm actually going to have to step forward to make that longer reach. But as you see, that's a really awkward step for me to make. With my attack foot forward, I'm in a really great position to be making shots on my opponent because it keeps them at a distance. But with my attack foot forward, I also don't have the motion that I want to have so that I can overreach my opponent. And I'm just going to show you. If I switch my footing and I go defense foot forward, I'm calling it defense foot forward because that's the shield arm or the defending arm. If you're left-handed, switch them out. With my defense foot forward, the position I have on my opponent, now I've lost a little bit of range. I think you can see that on the video. I've lost a little bit of range on my opponent. Except, if I want to increase my range on my opponent, I can make a step that is going to drastically increase my range. Don't move, Kevin. Are you ready? I'm just going to step. I'm going to take a normal step forward. Okay? That's just a normal, I'm just going to take it. It's like a casual step forward. And that's going to change my range on my opponent from this to this. I'm basically gaining almost a sword's length. It's whatever the distance is between my feet. That's the distance that I'm gaining on my opponent. The problem with straight up combat with my opponent is if I go to make that step, he is going to, he is not going to let me make a step towards him without him doing something. Even if I'm in my defensive position, I take that step forward. Exactly. He's going to abuse me any way he can. When I change the range between me and my opponent, I change the range for both of us. So if I'm already at my maximum range, okay, if I'm already at my maximum range, I can do something. If he steps into me, I can change the range for both of us. So when I'm attack foot forward, I'm actually thinking about how I can retreat so that I can then attack again. So the first thing I want you guys to understand as beginner combatants is that your step should be included in your swing. When you're thinking about the areas of your opponent that you can strike, you want to think about also including that step. So if, for example, I'm in a defensive position, a bunch of my allies have just died, and I'm just defending off Kevin while I'm making a retreat, then I'm just going to 2-step a retreat, constantly keeping my attack foot forward so that I have my maximum range as I step back. And I'm not even necessarily going to go foot over foot. Okay? I might even just do this. Okay? Where I'm taking half steps so that I'm maintaining my range, maximum sword range, but I'm keeping myself in a defensive position. Alternately, if I want to make Heppen move back, maybe I do the exact opposite, and and I step into my opponent, using my guard for blocking, step into my opponent to make those attacking shots and force him to move. When you're straight up on your opponent, really the range that you're trying to consider is the distance that you are between and what your shot is. Gauging how close I need to be to my opponent in order to make that kill shot. And then deciding what step to take in order to enhance my defense, backing up, or my attack. That's the first thing I want you to consider. And as beginner combatants, understanding that range, the range of your shot is super, super important. So now I'm going to show you the next one. No combatant will ever just, unless you're in a fencing line, will ever just step into their opponent without having a point, an intention to that. Last week, I taught combo shots, and you can use that forward step with a pair of combo shots. You can use it with any of them. Okay? Any of the combo shots I thought, you can use that forward step to do that. Or in this case, but your opponent's not going to just stand still, they're going to move too. So whenever you're making that motion, I want you to consider moving to the left or to the right of your opponent. And when you do this, the important thing is to maintain that body position on your opponent. And I'll show you what that looks like. So if I want to make this step forward, I'm actually going to make the step a little to the side. This has done two things for me. One is, without changing my range, so I'm just going to do my, without changing my range, I've increased what I can see. Okay? My cone of attack is way higher. And I haven't changed my range. Still using that front step. But instead of charging into my opponent where I'm putting myself into a place where he can attack me really easily, I'm setting myself up to continually be to maintain my defense, but also increase my zone of attack because I can see a lot more. If I do the exact opposite, it's not the opposite. If I do the same step but to the opposite side, so if I step to this side, I've done the same thing. I haven't increased my range of attack. My range is the same. But because I've changed my position of my opponent, these things are now within my realm of actually striking. But I haven't really changed my range because if I step back, my range is the same. So by stepping over, I change my zone of attack, and I change what I can see. It was really important when we're talking about shield defense. I mentioned what you see and what you can see is part of the whole process of understanding what you can hit. Because if you can't see it, you can't hit it. I'll just show you, here's an example. Go ahead and put a guard on. We're going to get you a shield here. Use shield. Thanks. So from here, this is my zone of attack. Okay? What I can actually see is just right there. I can see that shoulder. I can see this leg. I cannot see this shoulder. I can't see any body here. I can't see either of his hips. So he's got himself in a really great defensive position. Without him moving, if I simply take that step, without him moving, if I take a step and I do it to the side, now I can see the shoulder, the chest, this shoulder, I can see that hip, I can see inside the body, I can see that whole arm. If I go back in front of his shield, I can't see any of that. Using the step so that you can see what you want to hit is a part of the process of thinking about your footwork. You don't ever want to just step into somebody straight up. You're going to want to learn to step sideways. But always with this in mind, keeping your body position square to your opponent. You want that center of your body to be to the center of your opponent. And the reason you want that is because that maximizes both your attack and defense on your opponent. So it increases my defense, it also increases my attack. He should be doing the same. He should also be positioning his body so that he is body square to me. That doesn't mean that I'm standing like this. It means that my body center is to his body center. So I'm always maintaining a position where I'm sort of shoulders away from him, but I'm also maintaining a position where I'm body center. Here's an example of me getting off body center. Are you ready? Okay? I am no longer body center to him. Now I'm body center to whatever's over there. Okay? Here's another one. Okay? Now I'm body center to whatever's over here. But maintaining body center means that I'm actually moving in an arc around my opponent. I'm moving in an arc. Now, as beginners, it's really difficult to get away from crossing over your steps. Crossing over. Where you're literally walking in front and behind. That's okay. As beginners, you're learning how to move around your opponent. It's way more important for you to maintain that central body position than it is for you to maintain proper footwork at this moment. That body position will save you. Even if I'm like stumbling, even if I'm not 100% sure of where my feet are going, I definitely want to keep that position in mind. But moving my feet is the most important part. When you foot over foot step, when you step, okay, and your feet cross, whether it's that way or this way, okay, whenever your feet cross one another, you become unbalanced. You lose a portion of your balance because your balance position moves from your feet right up to here, wherever your legs are crossing. It moves to your hip. So you're out of balance until you can tripod again, essentially. Until you can get your feet shoulder width apart. So the first thing I want you to consider is what's the range that you're doing on your opponent, and how does this step change that range? The second thing I want you to consider is the arc. I want you to think about when I'm moving my feet around, what am I looking for to try and hit? Okay, what am I looking for? And then the last thing I want you to do is I want you to use the combo shots that we tried last week, and I will reteach for those of you who weren't here. I want you to use the combo shots we tried last week and actually step into the combo. So here's an example. Got this great shield over here. I am going to make a step as I do a swish and flip. Okay, really simple. I'm just going to make a step. What this is doing for me is I'm changing the range of my attack, I'm changing the angle of my attack, and I can now see the target that I'm trying to hit. Even though he's got a shield up in front of me, I can still do that switch and flick. And I get real deep. I can get really far. In fact, if he even turns, if he rotates to defend against me, I can still hit him with this step. Because I can technically hit his shoulder. Okay? And that's just adding a step to the combo that we did last week. So instead of doing this, I'm going to do this. Just adding that step. So I want you to consider adding that step that way. And when you do the arm over arm, I can't even see his arm. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to stepping this way into the arm so that I can do this shot. That's the combo. Just two straight shots. I'm trying to get outside the sword, and then I'm trying to get inside the sword. In this case, his sword is right up against his shield, so that is inside his sword. That's fine. And then I'm going to do the same thing where I'm going to make that same step when I come across and dark side. Okay? I'm going to make this step here. I'm going to try and step around it, staying within that arm. So those are the three things that I wanted to teach you guys in regards to footwork. And we're going to shift over to giving this a try, because some of this is really tricky. And honestly, it's okay if you just like, all right, I did it, yeah, I moved and attacked. That's totally cool. Start with that, and then you can build up from there, because believe it or not, footwork is one of the hardest things to perfect in swordplay. Excuse me? Footwork is one of the hardest things to perfect in swordplay, so it's something that you develop over a long period of time. And as you go from beginner combatants up to intermediate and advanced level combatants, you're going to find that the way that people use their feet changes dramatically depending on their style. We haven't even talked about combat style yet. We're just talking about the basics. Okay, before we get into the the end of the lessons here, thank you so very much for coming to this Regent Ramas recording. We'll catch you next time.